Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name is Steve Martin, and today I'm going to be going over how I have my Hobie Pro Angler 14 set up for tournament fishing. I did a video a few years ago showing how I have an XI3 and Livescope set up on my Hobie Pro Angler without drilling any holes in the hole itself. I've made some changes since then and wanted to do an update video on that, as well as show some new upgrades that I have. Hope you all enjoy it. Please let me know if you have any questions on any specific part that I have set up. I'd be happy to go into detail on that. Starting off with my electronics battery, I'm running a 12 volt, 45 amp hour MillerTech lithium battery. I am running it underneath of my seat. I took out the foam underneath the seat, and this allows my battery to slide right up underneath there, be out of the way, and I can still fit my hatch bucket right here. Next, I'm going to walk through my Yak Power 8-switch relay system. For the bow, I have the Steadycast. Midship, I've got interior red lights. The S or the stern, that is my USB port. 1 and 2 are my fish finders, and 3 is my Livescope. Also has the nav lights here. I will go ahead and show that. And I had turned on my nav lights. As you can see, it turned on my green and red lights up here. Need this since I am running a trolling motor. Now I'm using the Yak Power brand. I just decided to go ahead and drill some holes in here. This is something I probably will change in the future if I ever get a new hole or anything like that. I will not drill into the hole for this. There's better options. I could install it on the plate here for my trolling motor. There's just other things that I can do with that. Moving to the front, I've got my Motor Guide XI3. I've got it on a one objective mount, quick release. I love this mount. It's easy. It's got a carrying handle in the front there. I am running a little lever here that deploys my trolling motor. So I pull on this, and then that drops down like so. And I've got another cord right here that lets me lower that slowly or raise it back up as I need to. Now as for the plugs, I am running the Marineco 70 amp plugs. Got this wired on 6-gauge marine grade wire. Highly recommend this setup. Moving to the front hatch again, I've got my Marineco 70 amp plug. I'm gonna lift the hatch up here, show you how I've got it set up on the inside. I've got my plug there coming in, and again, it's not drilled through the hole, it's just through the slid. It'd be easier to replace this lid if I ever need to. Wired with 6-gauge marine grade wire. All right, so the front hatch area, I've got my Tim Percy mounting board here. I've got my Livescope black box hooked up, set up on it, as well as the Yak Power 8-circuit relay switch there. I did take some bungee and made it so I could easily access wires, pull this back a little bit. I've got all my wiring back here. I've got a USB port going up through here, so pretty easy to access this if I ever need to. I'm gonna pull this little bucket out. This is actually where I used to keep my electronics battery set in here perfect, and if I ever wanted to travel any short distance or something like that, I felt pretty secure that it wasn't going to roll around or anything. Just replaced it with this little bucket. I've got a medical kit, spare rearming kit for my inflatable life jacket, big wipes. Something I did myself was I made this little mounting plate board up here, and I'll show you how I've got it set up. I've got yoga blocks that I made like little pillars out of right here. I've got wire wrapped around it, my Livescope wire wrapped around it, but these work pretty good, and hides my wires pretty well. And then what's really neat about this is on the back of my board here, this is where I have my Garmin Steadycast. So this is just a heading sensor. It does not need to have line of sight to the sky or anything like that, since it's not a GPS. It just tells me which direction my kayak is facing, which is really beneficial with Livescope, because then I can see exactly which way the Livescope is pointing as well in relation to my kayak. And to be able to run the Steadycast, I have to have a NEMA network set up. So what I did was I just took some zip ties, and I think these are just backed by some 3M tape or something. Mounted along the side of here. A lot of wire, as you can see, but it's up out of the way and on the side there, and I still have room if I ever, for whatever reason, if I can ever find anything that I want to add to this, I still have room to do so. I didn't really use the kayak's rod holders, so I just decided to get rid of them, and it actually works out perfect because they're a great spot to run wires. As you can see, I've got wires coming up here. This goes to a fish finder. I've got wires coming up here, goes to a fish finder, but I've got all my wires for the NEMA network, Livescope. As you can see here, this is actually my Livescope wire going into the hole. Also have a USB port right there. I can charge a cell phone if I'm running a GoPro and don't want to mess with batteries that day. I can just use that right there. So I recently added the dugout fishing dual graph mount here. Fits right on these tracks. I really like this mount. I have not used it yet, but it will clear the pedals, and it does sit up a little bit higher than I would like, but honestly I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal where it's at. I stand up and fish a lot. The only issue that I really found was that I love to run 3 or 4 rods where I put the butt right here and then have them stick out the side of the kayak right here. Well, I couldn't really do that with this mount here. What I came up with is taking these Hobie rod holders, and this one's on the A-trail. This one is actually zip tied to the side of the mount there. And what I can do is I can run 3 rods, and it's better than it used to be, because I used to actually step on the rod butts quite a bit or they'd be in my way. But they're up out of the way and really easy to grab. I'll stick a couple rods on there so you can see. But there you go. That's not really in the way of anything. Easy to grab. I can fit 3 rods up there, maybe more. Not sure yet. I haven't tried it, but I think I'm really gonna like this setup, how I have that. Something new this year is I'll be running dual graphs, which is going to be fantastic when I'm running Livescope. I want to have maps up at the same time. With the Steadycast installed, you can see exactly which direction the Livescope is pointed in relation to my kayak, and I actually have this set up to appear on both graphs if I need to. So moving back a little bit, I've got a RAM tablet holder right here. Fits my iPad perfectly. I can run extra maps on it, Active Captain, the Garmin Active Captain, really like that. Moving back a little bit, I've got the Hobie bin here. I store plastics that I use quite a bit throughout the day. And this one behind it, there is my power pole switch. I can raise and lower my power pole. And moving back, I've got the Hobie mini bin. This is where I throw all my soft plastics usually after they're used. I did a video a few years ago on this little modification where I just took some stretch cord and shock cord, whatever you call it. Stored scissors right there, but when I'm traveling down the road, I just pull this tight and it's not going anywhere. Something I want to show here is I have these little support brackets for the seat. I think Ryan Murphy Designs made this one, but I've got the front ones, and then if you can see it, I also have the rear ones. I've never had any issues with the hole cracking right here, but it is a known common issue with the Hobies, and I'll show you in a little bit. I actually have a spot in the back near the rear scupper with very, very thin plastic, so I'm just not gonna risk it, and decided to go ahead and add these on there. Underneath of my seat, this is where I keep soft plastics. Fits underneath there perfect. And this is where I keep all my terminal tackle. I'll show you this real quick, because this is actually my favorite way to store my terminal tackle. I've got all my weights here. This one's 1/2 ounce and under. I have them sorted, barrel weight, flipping weight, nice, tidy. And surprisingly, that has lasted to where I don't get things out of place and doesn't turn into a mess. Also able to keep my hooks in their original packaging, which is awesome. Moving back to my Livescope setup, this is on a Fishing Specialties mount. I think Dugout calls this their Fisher mount. Been running this for years and absolutely love it. And I've tried several Livescope mounts, and this is by far the best one. To store it, I have 2 Hobie A-trail rod holders. Just slides right in there perfectly. Can use the tie-down cords when I'm transporting it. Doesn't go anywhere. The transducer itself is hooked up to a Fishing Obsessed Dominator mount. Really like this one because I can switch between forward mode and perspective mode very, very quickly with it. So since I've gotten my XI3 on this Hobie, I have actually been using my pedals as well, just to want to keep them in the kayak in case something happens with the motor, but I normally had been using them in conjunction with the motor, but recently I've decided to put my pedals behind the seat and just have them as a spare. Really like that because it opens up the whole deck area, a lot of deck space now, and it slides right behind the seat perfectly right there, out of the way, easy to grab. Now I throw crankbaits a lot, and I have always used a net, probably will always use a net, so I added this little rod holder right there, little mount there, slides in there perfect, it's out of the way of the fish finders, doesn't interfere with my motor, and it's actually raised up a little bit off of the kayak so I can reach it pretty easily when I'm standing up. Now I wanted to show my center hatch bucket and what I've got in there. Spare remote for the XI3, scale if I ever catch a decent fish and want to weigh it, phones, charging cables for my iPhone. I've got spare ID tags, a knife, a marker just to record, and then also leader material. Here I've got my registration as well as some lens wipes. And moving back, Here's my H crate. It's worked pretty well for me over the years. Got several rod holders on there. Got an H bin off the front. Keep some scents and A-rigs. Stuff I don't use a ton, but I like to have it in here when needed. Can hold 10 rods on it. As you can see, I also keep my catch board on here. Slides in and out pretty easily. And moving back, here's my battery box. On the battery box itself, I've got an amp meter. Tells me how many amps I'm drawing, as well as how many amps I've used throughout the day. Have it set up for the plug, the Marinco 70 amp plug through the rear hatch. You have to be very careful when drilling this hole if you decide to do this, because it has to line up pretty much perfectly, because there's with the rudder recess and then also bottle opener that you have to watch out for. And moving over to the side, this is just a little charging cable. When I get home at the end of the day, that's what I plug in to charge it. And then also running a USB port back here. This runs a rear GoPro. And speaking of GoPros, here's my rear camera mount. It's a RAM mount. I really like this camera angle. It's probably my favorite one. Just over the shoulder, I can turn around and talk to the camera if I need to. Gets pretty high up so you can really see everything. And moving back to the power pole, the micro power pole, I have it set up on Hobie's mount. This is one of my favorite things I've added to this kayak, actually. Just the ability to come up on a piece of cover, power pole down. I can run the motor to hold me in a steady position facing whatever direction I want. All right, thanks for watching. That's how I have my Hobie Pro Angler 14 set up. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you want me to take a more in-depth look at any particular thing I have on my kayak. As for this year and what I'll be doing, I'm probably going to be staying more local. Be fishing Indiana Kayak Anglers. Their first event will be on Duggar Unit in April, and then also going for the Raccoon AOI on for Grubby, Grassroots Bass Yakking. I've come close the past 2 years, and hopefully third time's a charm. But again, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know.